Two orphaned lovers wrote Dean Martin a desperate letter asking for help to afford their wedding. Dean's response shocked them beyond belief. He closed down his entire Vegas club just for them and gave them the wedding of their dreams. It was October 1964, and Dean Martin was at the height of his Vegas career, performing 2 shows a night at the Sands Hotel to packed audiences of high rollers, celebrities, tourists who paid premium prices to see the King of Cool. Every night after his performances, Dean would return to his dressing room to find stacks of fan mail, business proposals, and requests for favors from people all over the country. Most of the letters followed predictable patterns: requests for autographs, invitations to parties, business opportunities, or pleas for money. Dean's assistant would sort through them, responding to what they could, and filtering out anything that seemed inappropriate or unrealistic. But on October 15th, 1964, a letter arrived that was different from all the others. It was handwritten on cheap stationery, and the careful penmanship suggested that whoever had written it had taken great care with every word. The letter began simply, "Dear Mr. Martin, we hope you will read this with an open heart, because we have nowhere else to turn." Dean's assistant almost discarded the letter. It looked like another plea for money, but something about the tone made her decide to place it in the pile of mail that Dean would review personally. That night, after his second show, Dean sat in his dressing room reading through his mail while unwinding from the evening's performance. When he opened the carefully written letter, he found himself reading one of the most touching requests he had ever received. The letter was from a young woman named Sarah Chen, who was 19 years old and worked as a seamstress in a Los Angeles garment factory. She was writing on behalf of herself and her boyfriend Michael Rodriguez, who was 21 and worked as a mechanic in the same neighborhood. "Mr. Martin," the letter continued, "Michael and I are both orphans. We met 2 years ago and fell in love, and now we want to get married. But we have no family to help us, no savings for a wedding, and no way to afford even the simplest ceremony." Dean continued reading, learning that Sarah had been raised in a series of foster homes after her parents died in a car accident when she was 8. Michael had grown up in an orphanage after being abandoned as an infant. They had met at a community center dance and had been inseparable ever since. "We've been saving every penny we can for over a year," Sarah's letter explained, "but after paying rent and buying food, we can only save a few dollars each month. At this rate, it will take us 5 years to afford even a small wedding, and we don't want to wait that long to start our life together." What moved Dean most about the letter was not just the couple's financial situation, but the obvious love and hope that came through in every sentence. Sarah wrote about Michael with a devotion that reminded Dean of his own feelings for his family. "Michael works 2 jobs and still finds time to bring me flowers he picks from empty lots," Sarah wrote. "He's never had a family, but he promises to love me and any children we might have with all his heart. All we want is one special day to celebrate our love and commitment to each other." The letter concluded with a modest request. "Mr. Martin, we know you help people sometimes, and we're wondering if you might know of any way we could have a small wedding ceremony without spending more than the $200 we've managed to save. We don't need anything fancy, just a simple ceremony with a few friends, and maybe dinner afterward. We would be grateful for any advice or help you could provide." Dean Martin had received thousands of requests for money over the years, but something about Sarah's letter touched him in a way that surprised him. The couple wasn't asking for luxury or trying to take advantage of his wealth. They were simply 2 young people who had found love despite difficult circumstances and wanted to celebrate that love in a meaningful way. Dean read the letter 3 times that night, thinking about the young couple who had enough hope to write to a stranger, and enough love to wait years for their wedding day if necessary. The next morning, Dean called his manager Mort Viner with an unusual request. "Mort, I want to do something special for a couple of kids," Dean said. "I want to give them a wedding they'll never forget." "What did you have in mind?" Mort asked. "I want to close the Copa Room for one night and turn it into the most beautiful wedding venue these kids have ever seen," Dean said. Mort was stunned. The Copa Room at the Sands was one of the most profitable entertainment venues in Las Vegas. Closing it for an entire evening would cost thousands of dollars in lost revenue, not counting the additional expenses of whatever Dean had planned. "Dean, are you serious about this?" Mort asked. "Do you know what it costs to shut down the Copa for a night?" "I know exactly what it costs," Dean replied. "And I know these kids are worth it." Dean's next call was to Sarah Chen. When Sarah answered the phone at her boarding house and heard Dean Martin's voice, she thought it was a prank. "Sarah, this is Dean Martin," Dean said. "I received your letter, and I'd like to talk to you and Michael about your wedding plans." Sarah was so shocked that she could barely speak. "Mr. Martin, is this really you?" "It's really me, honey. I want to help you and Michael have the wedding you deserve. Can you and Michael come to Las Vegas next weekend? I'd like to meet you both." Sarah's hands were shaking as she wrote down the details Dean gave her. He was arranging for plane tickets, hotel accommodations, and everything they would need for a weekend trip to Las Vegas. "Mr. Martin," Sarah managed to say, "we can't afford to pay you back for this." "Sarah," Dean said gently, "I'm not asking you to pay me back. I'm asking you to let me give you and Michael a wedding gift." When Sarah and Michael arrived in Las Vegas the following Saturday, they were met at the airport by one of Dean's assistants and driven to the Sands Hotel. They had never been in an airplane before, had never stayed in a hotel, and had certainly never imagined they would be personal guests of Dean Martin. Dean met them in his suite that evening, and he was immediately charmed by the young couple. Sarah was pretty and soft-spoken, with an obvious intelligence and kindness that came through in every word she spoke. Michael was polite and hard-working, with calloused hands that spoke of honest labor and eyes that lit up every time he looked at Sarah. "Tell me about yourselves," Dean said, as they sat in his living room overlooking the Las Vegas Strip. Over the next 2 hours, Dean learned the details of Sarah and Michael's story. Sarah had aged out of the foster care system at 18 and had been working to support herself while dreaming of a better life. Michael had left the orphanage at 16 and had been working since then to build a life for himself. "We know we don't have much," Michael said, "but we love each other and we want to build something good together." "What do you want most for your wedding?" Dean asked. Sarah and Michael looked at each other, and Sarah spoke first. "We want our friends to be there. We want to feel like we're starting our real life together, and we want to remember it forever. We don't need anything expensive," Michael added. "We just want it to be special." Dean smiled. "I think I can arrange something special." What Dean arranged was beyond anything Sarah and Michael could have imagined. He closed the Copa Room for the entire evening of November 7th, 1964, and transformed it into the most elegant wedding venue Las Vegas had ever seen. Dean hired the best wedding planners in the city to create a ceremony that would rival any society wedding. The Copa Room was filled with thousands of white roses, crystal chandeliers were installed for the occasion, and a white carpet was laid down the center aisle. Dean arranged for a professional photographer and videographer to capture every moment of the wedding. He hired the best caterer in Las Vegas to prepare a wedding feast that would serve the couple's 40 guests, friends from Los Angeles whom Dean had flown in for the occasion. But Dean's most special gift was his decision to personally officiate the wedding ceremony. Dean had obtained a minister's license specifically so he could marry Sarah and Michael himself. On the evening of November 7th, Sarah walked down the aisle of the Copa Room wearing a custom-designed wedding dress that Dean had commissioned from the best dressmaker in Las Vegas. Michael waited at the altar, wearing a tuxedo that had been tailored specifically for him. The ceremony itself was simple but profound. Dean spoke about love, commitment, and the courage it takes to build a life with someone when you've never had examples of family stability to follow. "Sarah and Michael," Dean said during the ceremony, "you've both learned to love without having love modeled for you. You've both learned to hope without having much reason for hope. That makes your love stronger than most people's, because it's based on choice, not habit." When Dean pronounced them husband and wife, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, including Dean's own. The reception that followed was magical. Dean had arranged for a full orchestra to provide music for dancing, and he had insisted that every detail be perfect, from the 5-course dinner to the elaborate wedding cake. But the most memorable moment of the evening came when Dean took the stage and sang personally for Sarah and Michael. He performed a selection of romantic songs, dedicating each one to the young couple and their future together. "This is for Sarah and Michael," Dean announced before his final song, "who reminded me that love is the most important thing in life, and that everyone deserves to celebrate it properly." After the reception, Dean presented Sarah and Michael with an envelope containing a cashier's check for $5,000, more money than they had ever seen, along with a note that read, "For your new life together, use it wisely, love each other fiercely, and remember that you always have a friend in Las Vegas." But Dean's generosity didn't end with the wedding. Over the following years, he stayed in touch with Sarah and Michael, helping them buy their first house, supporting Michael when he started his own garage, and even serving as godfather to their first child. Sarah and Michael's wedding became legendary among Dean's friends and colleagues. Frank Sinatra called it the classiest thing Dean ever did, and Sammy Davis Jr. said, "It showed the size of Dean's heart." The story of Dean's wedding gift to Sarah and Michael spread throughout Las Vegas, though Dean always tried to keep it quiet. He didn't want recognition for his generosity. He simply wanted to help two young people who deserved a beautiful beginning to their life together. Years later, when Sarah and Michael had built a successful life together and were raising their children, they would often talk about their magical wedding night and the man who had made it possible. "Mr. Martin could have given us money and sent us away," Sarah said in an interview decades later. "Instead, he gave us a memory that we've treasured for our entire marriage." Every time Michael and I have faced difficulties, we remember our wedding night and how it felt to be surrounded by so much love and generosity. Michael added, "Dean Martin taught us that success isn't just about what you achieve for yourself. It's about what you're able to give to others." We've tried to pass that lesson on to our children and grandchildren. The wedding Dean created for Sarah and Michael demonstrated something profound about his character. At a time when his professional life was defined by sophistication and coolness, Dean's private generosity revealed a man with an enormous capacity for empathy and love. Dean Martin's gift to Sarah and Michael wasn't just a wedding neat. It was a demonstration that every love story deserves to be celebrated, regardless of the circumstances that surround it. He took two young people who had every reason to believe that life would be a struggle and showed them that sometimes, when you least expect it, the world can be amazingly generous. The Copa Room returned to its normal entertainment schedule the next evening, but the memory of what had happened there lingered among the staff and performers who had witnessed Dean's extraordinary gift. Dean never spoke publicly about the wedding. but those who knew him understood that it represented everything he valued most: family, love, loyalty, and the belief that everyone deserves moments of pure joy in their lives. Sarah Chen Rodriguez and Michael Rodriguez celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 2014, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. They credited their strong marriage to the foundation of love and generosity that Dean Martin had helped them build on their wedding night in 1964. The letter that started it all, minus Sarah's handwritten plea to Dean Martin, was framed and hung in their living room for the rest of their lives, along with photographs from their magical wedding night at the Copa Room. Dean Martin's wedding gift to two strangers remains one of the most beautiful examples of celebrity generosity in entertainment history, proving that sometimes the most meaningful performances happen not on stage, but in the moments when we choose to transform someone else's life with unexpected kindness. If this story of extraordinary generosity and love moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who believes in the power of kindness to create magical moments. Have you ever witnessed or experienced unexpected generosity that changed everything? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to check out our other videos about the hidden kindness that makes the world a little more beautiful.